Welcome to Litfest and our final Saturday of Litfest 2024. Today is our poetry day, but just before that begins, we're going to get a final glimpse of all the varied forms that literature comes in through some fantastic new talents from Lancaster University. We're going to hear an exciting and eclectic mix of forms and styles from short stories, nature writing and poetry. We're going to hear from 9 readers, and they're going to be introduced by another of our board members, Oliver K. Langmead, who's waving at you happily. Ollie is a teacher up at Lancaster University and also a Lancaster Litfest board member. He is a novelist and a poet, because just released, you may have seen, is Calypso, which Bill is waving at the back, which is Ollie's latest novel in verse. Now, today's event is supported by Lancaster University, as you may have guessed, Lancaster City Council and Arts Council England, who have helped make this possible. We're going to run for about an hour. We might go a bit over, and that's fine, because we've got time. I'm just checking if there's anything else I should have told you. No, we're good. So I'm going to cut it off there. Ollie? Oh, no, there was something I should have said. My name's Natalie. I'm a Litfest board member. I've not just mugged somebody for a microphone. Okay, come on, Ollie.
I take your mic. I can speak in this microphone. This is absolutely fine. Hello, everyone. And yeah, just as Natalie's introduced, welcome to the Litfest Lancaster, the very first Lancaster University student showcase. I'm extremely excited about this. It's like a prototype for years to come, so very experimental. We'll see how it goes. And for Poetry Day, it's a lot of poets, just to warn you in advance. And also, off the back of that, I should say, this isn't secretly an event for me to sell more books, but they are on sale in the hall should you, on the way out, wish to look at a copy. Hello, welcome, come on in. So yeah, let's go into the spiel. I'm a lecturer in creative writing at Lancaster, and it is my honour to teach students of all levels, from those just starting out as undergrads, all the way up to embarking on PhDs. At Lancaster, we're proud to have helped produce some incredible writers, like Andrew Miller, Daisy Johnson, Jennifer McCombie, and Camille Ralphs most recently, who all went from their studies with us to illustrious, award-winning careers as writers. Extremely exciting. Today, we're showcasing a selection of performances from current students across all of our programs. Even managed to get distance, MA. Thank you for coming. Who are on their way to illustrious careers of their own. These are the writers to be looking out for next, as the quality of their work attests to. They are exciting new voices, and they are essential to the future of our art as writers. So without any more ado, because we have 9 performances today, extremely exciting, I'm going to introduce Jeff Cox to open the showcase. Jeff is one of our modular MA students, and he will be performing some of his poetry for us, which have been told has an environmental theme. Jeff, take it away.
Thanks very much, Ollie. It's thank you for pulling together an event under the banner A Glimpse of Tomorrow's Great Writers, and open it with a 69-year-old bloke. There's some delicious irony there. Thanks. I'm in the middle of a project pulling together some poetry. I've not written poetry for a while, but this project is allowing me to dip my toe back into that water, with a view to making some short poetry films this coming summer, with Rich Berry up at Real Things Film Productions up in Kendal. It's not a lot of laughs in these two, I'm afraid, but there are only 2 of them, so here we go. First one's called Who Owns Your Shadows? Listen to what is out there. It's just beyond the flickering limits of your firelight. It's moving. Pay attention, for what it is your fear. We've always huddled close to fires, clinging to human warmth and the security of light, convincing ourselves that if we light the fire, then we can explain the shadows. Those shadows, the ones that dance at the margins of your lives. We read what we are told to read. We read what will keep our fears alive. We read what will add substance to those shadows. We tell ourselves that those shadows are ghosts of the smoke that rises from our fires, shadows that we made. For if we cannot own the fire, we would be forced to admit that the shadow dance is a threat of some greater strength. A dark and malevolent strength, obscure, poorly defined, living out there in a place we can't be shown. Something infinitely greater than us, something beyond our control. It's there in the hands that launch small boats, or in blurred images of bombed-out cities. Behind the veil of artificial intelligences voting in secret to subvert our rights. The democracy they stole in secret is reported to be under threat. Please sign a petition to say you care, but don't protest. Your placards are offensive. Go home. Build your fires, stoke them well. Let them burn through your fear-filled nights. Tell yourselves that it is your fire and not your planet that is burning. Stare into the embers of your fearful apathy and give thanks that your newspapers burn so well. Second one I've got for you, there's not many giggles in this one either, I'm afraid. This one's called Saturation. It's nothing special, just another neglected riverbank, overgrown, nettles, brambles, time-broken fences, mainly willow and alder down here, sad and tangled water lovers, knotting their branches out across the flow, the warp of willow to the weft of alder. Blackened leaves drawing moisture from guilty fingers of mist. The river holds its silence. A damp morning, caught in the act of slipping between thickening fog and faint rain. Saturation. Cool air, gentle on the skin, the softest liquid, surface drawn from the warm Azores, quicksilver pickings, Atlantic gleanings, carried here to cool and condense, transmuted to water once again, collecting in the folds of leaves, and so it falls. Hold that moment. Right there, just before the liquid crystal meets the river. Consider the last moment when this will be water, before the purity of dew becomes something different. Each drop a dilution, a small and brave undoing of the sewage that runs beneath, open and unchecked. Think hard on that last moment, as one more insignificant thing of exquisite wonder becomes part of this inexorable flow downstream towards our destruction. Thank you.
The lectern's there for anyone who wants to use it. I realised halfway through that it was blocking our view of you a little bit.
Get used to that. When you grow up my height, it's, every lectern's too high.
But no, thank you for that. That was completely fabulous. Next up, we have Meg Horridge. Meg is one of our PhD students, and I hope they'll tell you a little bit about the topic of their PhD, which is absolutely fascinating. Meg will be performing a part of a science fiction short story for us today. I'll become Meg.
Be annoying and actually bring that right back. Okay. Yeah, so I am a PhD student, and my PhD is in utopian fiction. So naturally, this short story is speculative in nature, and that means I need to define a few terms for you. So the human society in this story, they work according to a philosophy of balance with nature, and they call that the equilibrium. They refer to the human society, the human-like realm of the world, as the auxilium, and the natural world is the antecedent. And at the beginning of this story, all you need to know is two characters, who you'll come to know, are walking through a forest. I work alongside Orion, and we can't help but discuss the equilibrium. So you don't believe in this work? Your heart's not in it, he asked me, and I tut as I stoop in the grass, parting it to get to the soil beneath. Of course I believe in it. I dig my little trowel into the earth at my feet and pull up a sample. Orion holds the specimen jar out for me to dispense the soil into. It's hard, a solid block the size of my hand, and grass root sticks out the bottom. You think I'd have taken part all these years if I disagreed? Orion secures the jar's lid and places it in the bag slung over his shoulder. But you have no reason to care. What makes you think that? Well, says Orion, you think our work disrupts the equilibrium, that we aren't moving closer to it, but driving it further away. That's not what I said. I stretch out my hand, and Orion helps haul me to my feet. We carry on walking through the brush. How was the equilibrium explained to you? As a swinging pendulum, I assume? Do they use that analogy out west? Orion nods, pushing a low-hanging branch out of my way. Yes. We say that the imaginary pendulum swings left and right, with the auxilium on one side and the antecedent on the other. With each intervention, the swing lessens, becoming shallower and shallower, until we reach the equilibrium, when the swinging ends and the pendulum stills. And that's where we disagree. Exactly, because you think our interventions only deepen the swing, that we'll never reach the equilibrium so long as we continue. I shake my head. There's a chuckle waiting in my throat, but I don't want to patronise the boy. He's only young, and it might ruin his first outing in this territory if I made him feel small. No, you misunderstand, I say. You see the equilibrium as a destination, a final state at the end of a long process. But for me, for us, this is the equilibrium, the small changes we make, the slow, subtle responses from the antecedent. All our grafting and gene splicing, our pruning and weeding, none of it will slow the swing of that pendulum, because the swing is the natural state of things, endless action and reaction, ceaseless change. Orion nods, but there's an irksome look on his face. He doesn't return my smile, only scrunches up his brow and looks away. I guess that makes some kind of sense, he says, staring down at a purple crocus rather than look at me. Should we sample one of these? Crocuses have been native here for centuries, and these look the same as they always have to me. But still, I nod. Yes, good catch. I would have missed those. Orion crouches and pulls a pair of secateurs from his pocket. He takes a single flower between finger and thumb and delicately snips its stem an inch or so beneath the bud, so it might flower again someday. I'm ready with an empty jar when he rises. He deposits the flower and finally looks me in the eye. Your way of seeing things here is so curious, he says. I'm not sure what to make of it. I smile, grip his shoulder, and hope he doesn't read the gesture as overly friendly. You've come a long way. There's no rush to get your head around any of this. Orion's mouth curves into a smile. It doesn't feel like I ever will. Now I do laugh. Give it time, I say. Orion tucks away his secateurs and I screw the lid on the jar, stashing it away in my bag. We carry on marching westward. Thank you.
Wow, that was awesome. Really enjoyed that. Next, I am super pleased to be introducing Bethan Roberts to you, who is one of our undergraduates performing today. Bethan is in their third year and will be presenting some of their poetry, which draws from Welsh metre and Welsh storytelling and culture.
Hi, I'm Bethan, and I have two poems for you today. So one of them was recently published in issue 38 of Flash, and it's probably one of the poems I'm most proud of because it was my first attempt at retelling a story. So it's a story from the Mabinogi, and it's the story of Branwen, and she's just a figure that I've always really liked. And I've always felt that her story felt quite male-dominated, which is unfortunate because she is just such a testament of female strength. So this is my poem, Branwen Fechaflia. Upon the cliffs of Harlech, the starling waits. Ships move from the horizon, docking at the shore. And that night, when blood soaks dirt to mud, the damage is done. The whispers, they tear apart fragile egos. He becomes the puppet, red string tied around his palms. He pulls, he squirms, he thrashes. He becomes the puppeteer. And he builds his stage from rotten wood. Him, his brother, his father. A cycle of biting the hand, holding the food, and the starling grieves. This war is fought on their land, in their armour with their steel, yet it is she who lies on cold stone, her skin battered blue. And she spills her woes from blood to ink. She ties it to the wing, and the starling watches, and then it soars. So the second poem I have is quite different than anything I've ever actually written before because it sort of came from a larger project that I'm working on, which is a fantasy based on Welsh mythology. And I was experimenting a bit with different types of Welsh metre because the Welsh language, being so lyrical, has some very, very complicated metres. And I was just reading a couple of essays about it, and I was like, I wonder if I could adapt this into like some of my poetry, which obviously isn't in Welsh. And the answer to that is you can, but it kind of makes you lose your sanity. But I created this poem, and I think it's really fun. It kind of makes me feel a little bit like, a wizened witch in a cottage giving a prophecy to some young traveller. So it's very different, and it's the story of Llyf and Llefelys. And here it fell on May Eve. A shriek so piercing brought a plague 3. Heard over each searing hearth, tore right through our youthful hearts. Tumultuously shook were the wombs, where babes lay in final tomb. And as lands emaciate, minds are left to darker fate. Here tells a tale of two brothers, that which called upon the other. For such wisdom Llyf did seek, to end mortal blight most bleak. And so in such dire an hour, Llefelys sails to lend his power. He asserts that warring beneath are two dragons near to seed. Llefelys says, to kill such shrill pitch, you must go and dig a ditch, equal distance, land to sea, of which shall be filled with mead. Brocaded silk is to be draped, and you, brother, to lie and wait. And once they tire of such fight, they too shall succumb tonight. And only when their eyes are closed, with such silk they are to be clothed, and sealed inside tightest chest with strongest metal you possess. That is, brother, what I bid, and it was exactly as Llyf did. And now buried deep beneath dragons red and white asleep.
Brilliant. Thank you. Next, we have Emily Buckley, who I'm so pleased to have taught both as an undergraduate and now a postgraduate as she undertakes her master's degree with us. Today, she will be performing part of a fantastical short story.
Hello, Hello, I'm Emily. This short story is something that I'm currently writing for my sci-fi and fantasy class as an MA student. It follows the story of Asher, who is a young boy who has just moved to a village on the outskirts of nowhere. Asher hadn't intended to walk this far from Orkin, the small village he had moved to with his father following his parents' divorce last summer, and had quickly regretted not turning back once he realised his mistake. The village was nicknamed Last Stop for a reason. It was the last place on the map of Nixt, the largest continent that stretched like a cat across the bottom left corner of the world. He was only supposed to wander for a few minutes. The villagers had instilled that in him. Never walk more than 2 minutes away and always in a straight line. Easier to retrace your steps that way, he supposed. No one had ever returned from the eternal snowstorm that spiralled to the southwest like a chaotic ballerina, occasionally falling from grace and brushing upon the crop fields on the outskirts. It was crops, or lack thereof, that had gotten him into this mess in the first place. The community fields were manned by those with nature magic in their veins, and so the crops usually grew perfectly. But each house had a wide patch of land around it for personal use, perfect for growing drop berries and winter roots. Nothing else could survive the frigid soil without magic. That didn't stop his father, Haldir, a burly man almost constantly bubbling with underlying rage, from insisting that Asher attempt to grow a large crop of barley to ferment into homebrew. Most of the family coin was spent in the small tavern at the centre of town, and each night Haldir would stumble home with the smell of beer on his breath and insist that Asher get some damn barley in that soil, boy, or you'll get what's coming. As Asher anticipated, the crop had failed. Not one seed sprouted through the frosted earth. His father, mouth frothing like a creature turned rabid, had slammed the cupboard door so hard that a glass magnet fell from the fridge, shattering on the kitchen floor near Asher's feet, when he explained that the crops wouldn't grow. "What do you mean they won't grow, boy?" his father snapped, anger raising in his baritone voice. As he tried to explain further, Haldir cut him off, his voice echoing off the walls. "You had one job and you can't even get that right. You're just like your mother." His chest had tightened at the mention of his mother, and he shot back, "Maybe you should have let me stay with Mum then." Asher stormed out of the house. He'd gotten lost in his anger and sadness, and the intended 2-minute walk to clear his head had turned into several hours, walking further and further from civilization, pretending he wasn't going against the first rule he had been taught when they moved in. He'd been walking for hours before he escaped the metre-high snowbanks, cheeks like honey-red apples beneath the scarf he'd pulled up to keep out the chill. He slipped a flask of tea stashed in his coat pocket for what was supposed to be a day in the library as the snow began to die down. A few more metres and it was gone completely, opening up to a rocky plateau with outcrops hanging over the edge of the world. Asher didn't know what he'd expected to find this far south, but he certainly didn't expect what he saw now. An old man sat on a crate outside of a tumble-down hut, fishing over the edge of the world into the void.
Brilliant. Love that. Next up is Aisha Tandon, who is one of our MA students. Aisha has volunteered to perform some of her poetry, examining themes of family, regret, and her experiences as an Indian woman.
Hi everyone. I have actually changed some of the themes from that, but I probably should have said that, shouldn't I? But yeah, so my first poem is actually not necessarily, it's serious in its own way. But in my last module, we were doing like visualizing poetry, so like ekphrastic poetry. And I wanted to surprise my tutor, and so I decided to do a poem about a drain. So this poem is called Void. I'm alone on this road, buried deep inside this sticky hot tarmac. The only release I can find is the way foul, ice-cold rainwater gushes through my widened cracks. There are dense green clumps hanging onto my once shiny metal sides, now black. I feel it itching on me, stinging its vivid green across my dull-greyed back. Help me, because I do not feel like I am here in my mind. I am trapped in this body. I don't know who I am or where I am meant to feel. A person dropped their phone through me once. I am stuck reliving the sensations that happen when a thing slips through my plane of existence. I lie in wait under the broken soles of muddied shoes, on hold for the moment I am seen, as I drain away decades of tears fallen from vomit-stained nights and rain-soaked days. I am on watch for you, on pause until your moment needs rinsing away, through the gaping holes in my chest, where my hollow ribs should be. Washed into the stench-filled sewers below me, And so I face the transient sky silently, knowing I am empty in this way for as long as I am functioning. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. So my second poet is, I previously did some medicine before this, a few years of it, and I was interested in incorporating that, and I think a lot of my tutors thought it would be a really interesting idea. So it's called Open App Surgery. The detailed thorax of my notes app is lying across the screen of my phone. My slow fingers slide down the Contents tab, along the hardened surface of its weathered spine. I feel into each note, scaling the ribs of my thoughts, from tough cartilage to smooth bone, and then I reach muscles encasing a beating heart. I have found the only note I was searching for. It details how I met you, knew you, and lost you, how it feels to love and then to want to forget. The heart suddenly rips wide open in my weary hands, just as I am reaching for the delete button. Spilling scarlet violently from each fragile chamber, it seems I cannot forget how it was to love you. Futile in my efforts to forget. I knew I wanted to lose you forever, but is this it now? I try to close the note, to repair the bleeding organ, but tendons have been overstretched. Valves have been loosened, and there is now a maroon pool everywhere, and I cannot seem to push it all back inside. However hard I press, it is entirely futile. I have ripped open this wound irreversibly. The note is lying open on the dusty table in front of me. It seems I didn't account for how it feels to try to lose what I have left of you. That's the second one. And then I think the third one definitely explores more about being an Indian woman, and it's a rewrite of I Go Back to May 1937 by Sharon Olds, and it's called An Almost Broken Wedding in India, 1992. It's a bit of a sad one. There are some mentions of death and vague references to like emotional abuse as well. My parents are exchanging their vows. I see her head bent, as is custom, his held high, missing each other's glances in this moment, and for years, mirrored doubts passing each other by for the next 35. My mother is a vision, her skin lined in bloody red silk, all high cheekbones, sharpened eyebrows and lined lips. Being guided round the fire, each vow recited obediently, footsteps falling softly, forever destined to follow his. She is wearing so much gold it swings with each step, dragged forward into marriage by jewellery tied at her hip. I want to rip off her garland and set her free. I want to warn her, tell her he will become her eclipse. I long to tap her shoulder and whisper, let me kindle the fire, create a distraction. You won't ever have to be his wife. My mother does not deserve the pain she will have to live. I can already feel the violent ferocity emerging from his eyes. You will regret the way you spend your future, spending a slow, aching decade setting innocent lives alight. Broken by anger and fueled by the rage of injustice, you will do bad things to children. You are going to want to die. My parents believe they are the good kind of people. In this moment, they are young, stubborn, and innocent. They won't let go of nuclear family dreams, they decide, soon to spend 2 years gazing hopefully into an IVF Petri dish. Years of pain lie waiting, but this moment appears tentatively bright. In another life, my mother is unmarried. She is never hurt. They never conceive in that world, but I decide even if I could undo their damage, I want to stay. I want to learn. I meet the gaze of his cold photograph eyes, wondering if he ever possessed any paternal love to give. Their decision is already written in this universe, so I will let their marriage pass me by, I think, and I will live through it. Yeah.
Brilliant. Thank you. Thank you. Next is Alan Hay. Alan is one of our distance master's students, which I alluded to earlier, which makes me especially happy that he's come through to join us today. And he is going to be performing an excerpt from his dystopian novel.
Hi everyone, thank you. Probably wish I hadn't folded these bits of paper now, to make it a little bit more difficult. But I'll just hold on to them. It's part of my MA project, a dystopian novel. To set the scene, it's set sometime in the future, an unspecified time in the future. It could be a couple of years from now, it could be 50 years from now. Government has collapsed, corporations have taken over. And to set the scene, we have Cool Gallagher. He's our sort of protagonist. He's recently joined the ranks. He's been through an initiation ceremony to join the ranks of the local gangster poker law So my elevator pitch would be Peaky Blinders meets The Handmaid's Tale. We start walking back towards Havoc in single file up the narrow path that leads along the side of the burn. Scar leads the way, Poker Law behind him. Me and the 3 other boys fall in at the back. The men are full of wine, raucous, intimidating. Someone starts a song and it drifts down the line as more take it up. It's one my dad used to sing, something about thistles and freedom and independence, a battle cry from the old days. Across the water, Skull broadly strokes the long grass and waits where the dirt road crosses the burn. The singing fades and the men walk 3 or 4 abreast on the road. Wee Scobie is next to me. He lifts his head and sticks out his chin, puffs out his chest and carries his arms away from his sides, trying to imitate the swagger of the men. He looks ridiculous like the daft wee boy that he is. Skull waits for everyone to pass, then joins right behind me. Your wee pal done a runner, eh? I keep looking straight ahead through the crowd of men in front. There's an old boy dressed in rags standing next to the road, shouting, pointing at something only he can see. Ran away home to his mammy. Maybe she'll give him a wee suck in the tit afore she tucks him into bed. The Elgin looks wild, hair like thin grey rat tails, plaster to his face and a big matted beard. He's no wearing any shoes. Skull keeps on. You'll no get much, mind you. That old hair's dry as a pauper's wedding. The few gulps of wine have worn off, and I'm no feeling as bold. I keep walking, looking at the old man as I draw closer to him. Wee Scobie bends down to pick up a stone and throws it at the man. It clocks him right in the forehead, but the old boy doesn't seem to notice and just carries on. Skull slaps Wee Scobie a belter across the forehead. Behave yourself, he growls. The slap knocks the swagger right out of him. A few more like that wouldn't do him any harm. He's done me a favour though. Skull loses interest in baiting me and scuttles away to the front to report to Poker. The air thickens and the sky darkens as we reach the mire. Black smoke rises from the bonfire that scour the landscape, in the distance glowing like amber beacons through the grey smog. Masked firemen in heavy rubber boots and thick canvas gloves poke at the huge bonfires with long poles. One of them stands near the road, dunking his cloth mask in a barrel of dirty water. His face is black, ingrained into his pores and the lines of his face, the kind of black that never washes off. He wrings filthy water back into the barrel and ties the damp rag back over his nose and mouth. Crude improvised handcarts, piled high with rubbish, are hauled across the charred ground. They tip out the contents at the foot of each bonfire and return to collect more. The firemen shovel and rake the embers and build new fires on the ashes of the old. The rain's throwing down like nails as we reach the edge of the camp. A man tries to get his 2 kids out the rain into a green island tent. You can tell they've not been here long. Their clothes are clean, the tent looks clean. Rain collects in droplets and runs off the waterproof outer skin. Maybe they once used it for camping holidays, or more likely their parents or grandparents. I don't even know where you would get such a thing nowadays. The man holds the flap open to let them in. Inside, a woman sits cross-legged on the floor, holding a baby. They've got sleeping bags and cooking stuff, and a soft toy pokes out of a pink sleeping bag. How much of a fight will he put up when they come? He looks educated, a professional type, maybe a doctor or a teacher. Probably came here from one of the failed private cities. I don't fancy his chances. You've got to reset everything you've ever known. All the rules and morals you used to live by are no good here. You're in the Wild West now, and you better catch on quick. He might resist, so he doesn't lose face in front of his family, but he'll no fight. He's no the type. The mire will take what it wants and leave them with nothing. Further along, folk huddle away from the rain inside shelters built from repurposed scrap. Their iron is up as we march past. Smoke still chokes the sky, but there's something else in the air, the stench of squalor and misery. My God, this is a desperate place. These people, these poor souls, they have nothing. They have the clothes they stand up in and whatever they can scavenge from the rubbish passed down to them. There, but for the grace of God, my dad used to say. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Glimpses of a terrifying future, my goodness. Next up is Edward Davies, who is one of our second-year undergraduate students. Edward is a poet and is going to perform a few pieces for us, inspired by landscape, austerity, and themes of home, centred on Sunderland.
Hello, as you heard, I'm Edward or Polly, depending how queer I feel. And today, we're in Lancaster, but I want to take you to a small town on the northeast coast called Sunderland. And all of these poems are named after real places or real bus services in the case of one of them. So this is Mere Knowles Cemetery. We knelt on coats in an overgrown autumn bush, holding a flowerless funeral for a dead thrush. Said awe by roadside collisions and bench flowers, mourning pretty petals that withered to cower. We sat on linoleum, electric candles flickering, drawing chalky symbols, nervous kids bickering, clambered cobbled alleys and rotting coal staves, scrawled our young names on whatever we braved. We ran through graveyards, giggling at spooky tales, full of innocence, even on death's marked trails. And this is the 23. You get on in the northeast, Sunderland to town, from sunny trees by overgrown fields, red brick minor terraces crisscrossing grey bungalow social cottages, blowing dandelion pearls, cut up retail park roads, giggling girls trading small school stories until the bus comes. You get on in town fine, underground, brick glass concrete, pumping Bach and Beethoven, laugh it off, find one-of-a-kind video games, desserts, shops, funding deserts, ping-pong pop-up, youth council, teen eateries, small world politic, treading old gum pavement by shiny new developments until the bus comes. You get on next alone, Newcastle, to Toon, to golden opportunity, independent alleyways, college libraries, sit nowhere but everywhere, comfortable, never there, work and play and work, looping ink handwriting, raising by Gray's Monument, where reveller crowds wait until the bus comes. You get on with no return, northwest bound, first time, historic cobbles alongside brutal 60s cladding, education, 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 faraway friends peeling, students clamouring, group chat dreaming, digital crowd, lost not found until the bus comes. You get on too much, jumping home, future, back and back again between everywhere you would belong, less and less each time, crossing county lines, crumbling distances, cradling a summer personality, broken in winter storage, perching at cold railheads until the bus comes. You get on where again? Every town station sees you, drag boxes and suitcases, life bumping up pavements, house to house, dust to dust, unfold, put up hopes, dreams, qualifications, heirlooms, memories, belongings, always ready to pack, trains rustling on empty track, waiting for home to catch up until the bus comes. And this is quite a new one. I'm in the process of converting it to a sonnet, but I really, really wanted to read it. So just imagine that it's a sonnet for the purposes of this. But yeah. I walked with you once in a quiet museum wing, past flickering pit reels, echoing rock pit clinks, roaring carts under hellish earth. I missed then the way we were before you died at her hands. I grazed your industrial itchiness like it was mine, our fingers over a rusty railing. The seagulls split shells on concrete, and we watched cockle pickers, welly deep in seaweed tangles and mud like sand.
It's been a long time without you, but I still remember trailing dark earth over your deep, darker yet eyes, saying in a tremoring, thick voice that you'll still stretch beneath the sea plain of salted waves, your tangled track and coal dust, forever floating, their echoes returning to cover the beach you once loved.
Transporting. I felt as if I was in Sunderland for a little while there. Thank you. Next up, summoning from the back of the hall, we have Elizabeth Train Brown, who is another of our students who started as an undergraduate with us and has stuck around to take on the masters. Elizabeth is going to be performing an extract from their YA fantasy, which, and I love this, has been described by another of our lecturers, Ellen Caldecott, as Heartstopper meets Hammer Horror, which I cannot wait to hear from. If you care to join us.
Hello. I'm just going to wiggle that around. Thank you very much. These are proving a lot more cumbersome than I was expecting. I'm already tired of them. I sprained my ankle tripping over a bus stop, if no one's heard that story yet. Yes, this is my debut novel that I'm working on. It's a YA, and I have a pitch somewhere which I'm going to pull out because my brain's working very slowly this morning. So it's about Charlie, who is a trans teen who's always wanted to become a doctor and prove his dad wrong, and this is what happens when he's bitten by a vampire instead. So this scene takes place after it's happened, and he's kind of coming to terms with it. Some trigger warnings about generally being a trans teen in the Northwest, and parents. There we go. I'm going to get a cracked neck. I don't swim in public pools. I used to swim competitively, as a kid, as a girl. I hesitate when I see myself in the lock's reflection. Without these baggy layers of Felix's hand-me-downs, my body is small and curved. For half a moment, I consider not unwinding the binder from my chest. But this is the only one I have, and I can't wash it before school. It's a relief when I unwrap the bandages. Sometimes my ribs ache for days, and sometimes my breasts stab with pain. I'm not an idiot. I know you're not supposed to bind with bandages. I climb the side of one of the larger hills that grow in the forest and stare down at the water 10 feet below. My body is wrong and lumpy, and I have not felt comfortable in it one day I can remember. I'm sick to the bone of being safe, being sensible, of soft parenting my own mother, of holding Felix back from poor decisions by the neck. I'm so tired, and none of it paid off. The weeds that grow here are scratchy and thorned. They tangle around my ankles in the wind as I back away from my reflection. I close my eyes and count to 3. It's my turn to be a little Felix. I sprint across the outcrop and launch into the air, plunging headfirst into the water. Every sense in my body flares. For a second it's agony, and then the pain leaves, and I drift below the surface, cheeks blown wide. I open my eyes and scan the dark. I have not lived in a body that obeyed me, that was truly mine. The same way I once tried to disappear, I let the air out of my lungs until there is nothing left. And I find that I don't need to breathe. It's the strangest sensation. My chest struggles for the familiarity of the movement, and it's so uncomfortable I take an experimental breath and feel the pain of water in the wrong tube. Kicking to the surface, I cough it out of my airways. I'm a vampire. Sunlight doesn't burn, and last night I didn't sleep in a coffin, but I don't need to breathe. And I can feel every tiny movement of every tiny fish in this water, as if a circuit runs under my skin. Lockwald's lake is far deeper than most. Instead of a gradual bank, the ground disappears the minute it touches the water, less a lake than a hole. Diving deep, I kick and travel further through the dark, peering through lake fog and dirt. When I turn to look up, the sun is shattered across the surface, spanning as far as I can see. I spin in the gloom. It's eerier than the few meters Felix and I have been venturing since childhood. It's darker and denser, but I can see for miles. blinking through new eyes. I laugh and it echoes through the water, sounds swallowed and thrown back at me like some tongueless parroting well creature rehoused in the belly of a lake. I laugh again because the loch has never felt laughter here before, has never wondered at this not breath, this not scream, this odd gasp that shakes it more than the tail end of a lungful of air. I'm a vampire. There are more creatures below the shifting lake beds. Thick, muscular eels slip through the water like snakes in grass, beady eyes unsure of me. For a moment, I panic at the slither of teeth slicing through the dark. Then I catch my lip on my own tooth, twice its size and knife-edged. Monstrous carp with bulbous bodies and gaping mouths wade past, brushing against me without fear. I stroke a hand over the slimy meat of their sides, laughing. Grandad taught me all the fish in this lake. He used to bring me here to feed the ducks at 5 a.m. on Sunday mornings, wrapped up in matching hats and gloves and scarves while it was still dark out. When Nana was alive, she'd save up a bag of breadcrumbs and crusts all week for us to take. There's a photo somewhere that she took before we left one morning, red-cheeked, grinning, both of us perhaps 12 or 13 years younger than we are now. Me in pigtails, Grandad with hair still dark. As I grew older, he'd take me fishing on Ryhope. We'd leave even earlier in the morning, drive down in the car blaring Queen's greatest hits and sharing a jumbo pack of Mars bars between us. When we got there, we'd clamber over the jagged sides of the jagged cliffs and perch on the rocks with a fishing rod each and a bucket of ragworms as bait. He would ask me about school, and the years after I told him I wanted to be a doctor, he started memorising pages from the first aid manual at work so he could quiz me while we sat in the sea spray, shouting over the wind. I'm a vampire. Hand-sized silverfish zip around me with sparkling scales and blank, terrified eyes. They swim under my arms and I twist in the water, giggling as their tiny bodies tickle my skin. 1,000 freshwater creatures swim through the lake like a marine motorway. I gaze, hypnotised with a smile stretching my lips so wide I would be embarrassed if there was anyone down here. It's horrifying and world-shattering, but really? The quiet certainty that this body is strong, has a secret greater than the gap between my legs, feels like having sun under my skin. I could throw my head back, open my mouth, and dry up the loch. I speed through the water, wheeling and whirling like a seal pup in the sea for the first time. My muscle burns and it feels glorious. I swim until the sun has moved across the surface and my skin turns ash with cold. I never knew Mum's parents. Since Nana died, Grandad, on my dad's side, was the last extended family I had that we talked to. When Dad walked out on us, on me, I didn't know what that meant. I didn't know if he had the power to take his father away from him. And then Grandad turned up for Friday night dinner the next week, having memorised the information pamphlets at work about supporting your trans colleagues. I am a vampire. When I break the surface, I feel sunlight on my face as if for the first time and lay back in the water. I taste May in the air. I've felt exhausted with the act of being human for so long. Perhaps being a vampire can mean something different. Thank you very much.
Gorgeously written stuff. That was very close to the mic there. Thank you very much. And finally, our final performer of today, we have Isabel Dixon. Isabel is a third-year undergraduate, and today she'll be performing some of her poems, which are centred on themes of grief, romantic estrangement, and the everyday.
Hello. So these are from my Crew 303, which is my year-long module, and I've done poems on my hometown of Barrow-in-Furness, and sort of to celebrate the everyday experiences that happen all the time, and like that's the reason that they matter. So this first one's called Kneecaps. I saw a boy at the Raiders game with legs so skinny, his kneecaps bulged like boulders. Like Charlie's, when you dressed him in his grey school shorts for Mam's wake, because you never bought him trousers. Down at the soccer bar, for Christ's sake. Food from Asda. 2-for-1 salmon on croûtes shaped like stars, because Mum became the brightest star in the sky like she was in your life. Funny that. I always thought it was the carling and betting that lit the fire under you. Mum watched. I watched. Charlie stuck stickers in Match Attacks magazines. I'm sure you swiped from tables in Costa when new and tired mothers took their kids to the bathroom, baby bags stuffed with Pampers wipes and love. Charlie didn't eat at Mum's wake, not even the Billy Bear ham. You poured pints into grease-rimmed glasses behind the bar with Dave, who looked like he'd not stepped outside for a week. Mum's friends wept like Mary over Jesus. I crushed salmon pastry between my fingers when no one was looking, and no one looked me in the eye except Charlie. Perpetual tears gave me false cataracts. He clutched a bunny you said was girly, but Mum let him have at night. I tucked him into bed with a sandwich and prayed his legs wouldn't snap. Okay. And then this next one is called At the Back of Preston Street Pub. We saw the woman who works in the corner shop kiss Miss Steele, our Year 9 history teacher, who never corrected the lads yelling "dyke" across her classroom, who always taught a lesson on Eleanor Roosevelt, not Teddy, who had a portrait of Anne Lister as her laptop background, who taught us about women who pretended to be men in World War II so they could join the battle, fight the cause, stop popping beer bottle tops and boiling pork chops, mopping floors and little else, and the women who built bombs in boiler suits, an abandonment of dresses on clotheslines and bodies. I remember your presentation on Rosie the Riveter posters, and how I liked the projection of her curling bicep reflecting in your eyes, how your fingers were flecked with ink from writing out your notes, how I couldn't hold a word you said inside my brain because you didn't wear tights that day, so I saw the bottom of your thighs. You had a bruise on one of them. I wanted to kiss better. I wanted to kiss your fingers and absorb all your knowledge to save your lips from telling me, so I could kiss them too, if you'd let me, if you wanted me to. Miss Steele's history class, World War II lessons, me, you, history. Thank you.
What a brilliant note to end this on. I had a little thing written out that was very rote in terms of, wow, thank you everyone, those were great. But genuinely, sitting there, which is why I've left it there, and listening to all of those, I had full of thoughts, mostly pride. I'm extremely proud of all of our students, and as they've proven today, gosh, the work they're doing is so resonant to now. You will know the publishing industry, the way it works, is very, very, very slow. So by the time stuff goes out in the world, it's a few years out of date, usually. But the stuff we've listened to now is filled with all of our worries, with all of the things that we're thinking about, with all of our contemporary sort of sensibilities infused into them. It was extraordinary. And gosh, just the sheer beauty of all of it. There wasn't a single dud in there. It was all brilliant. And yeah, just to say, I'm very, very proud. And one more thing before I hand over to the outro Litfest folk. Do we have an outro today? We do have an outro. Fabulous. One last thing. I should say this event is taking place on an auspicious day, in that yesterday was the last day of Lent term up at Lancaster University, which means that for our third-year students and our one-year MA modular students, it was their last teaching term. Don't relax yet, MA students. You've still got your dissertations, and third years still have stuff to hand in. But in a sense, yesterday was a last day, and to those students in particular, I am excited, and we're excited for you to go out into the world and have your writing find new, amazing audiences who will appreciate it the same way we do. But yeah, nothing but pride for me. That was absolutely fantastic. Thank you all. One more round of applause for all of our brilliant performers today.
We do indeed have an outro. It is me. Thank you very much to all of our fabulous readers and to Ollie for comparing them all. We hope you've had a good time, and whilst it was the last day of term for a lot of those students, we hope it's the first day of some very exciting writing careers. Although we don't have their books yet, we will in the future, I'm sure. We do have a Litfest bookshop outside. And if I can move my phone so I can show you the books. That includes Ollie's Calypso. Very handily, some of Beth Train Brown's debut poetry collection, which was Salmacis, which she read for us at a different event last year, I think, or possibly the year before. And for £5 only, issues of Flash Literary Journal, which is run and produced by the students at Lancaster University's English Literature and Creative Writing Department. So we hope that on your way out the door, you will just find yourself dragged over to the bookstall, where our volunteer will be ably waiting to assist you in relieving you of your money. As you know, Litfest events are free or pay what you can, because we want everybody to be able to come. It's the other reason that we're doing our online streaming, care of Andrew from Purple Videos at the back. Thank you very much, Andrew. And I know there was a slight issue with timing in the programme. We had to move this event forward, and we tried to let everybody know. But if you came late because you didn't know, the fantastic thing about live streaming is you'll be able to watch it back online for 30 days, and you'll be able to catch up anybody that you've missed. As I said earlier, this is the first event of today. There are many events to come, so we would love to see you later for Hannah Lowe, our Pamphlet Poets Open Mic, Martina Evans, Emily Hassler, Don Patterson, Mark Pajak, and the many poets who will be reading at our Histories Gala tonight. Again, all of those events are going to be here or online. They're free, they pay what you can, and we hope you enjoy. And on the way out of the door, we will be rattling buckets at you. So if anybody feels able to give us even 50p, we would really appreciate it, because it will all go to helping us to carry on our work, to do more of these student showcases for you to be able to see the new and exciting writers that are coming your way. And the other way that you can support the festival is through our Friends scheme, which is new. There are leaflets dotted about that you may find, but you can also find the information online. And our Friends scheme allows you to join for £5 a month or £10 a month to support our work. There's full information on there about the benefits that you gain from it and what we can do with your money. So please give us some. Thank you very much. We hope you enjoyed, and thank you to all of our wonderful readers.